Hello and welcome to Cami Page Boutique. I'm Brooke Tannehill and today I'm bringing you another tutorial on how to create a beautiful stained glass tumbler using an alcohol ink hack. As always, all the materials I'll be using are linked down in the description, so take a peek, and there might even be a nice little coupon code to save you some coin if you decide to make a purchase. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I started with a fully prepped and sanded 30-ounce skinny from Craft Haven, took it outside, spray painted it white, and let it dry for about 45 minutes. After it was dry, I mixed up about 5 ml of a little extra ink epoxy and started to apply it very thinly to the cup so that we can move into the epoxy method of applying our glitter. I let the epoxy sit for about 2 minutes, then I grabbed my favorite white glitter, which is Diamonds from Glitter Heart Company, and I used the open side of the shaker just to take my time applying the white glitter. Now, I do this because in some of my previous cups that I've made, just because it's a white base with white glitter, it's hard to see everywhere that you get coverage. So I take my time, make sure that everything's covered the way I want it to, and then just get the entire cup with a very nice coat of glitter so that we can move into the next step. After I was happy with my glitter coverage, I went into 2 coats of epoxy. The first one was 30 ml and the second was 20 ml. Then I cut a decal that I would use for the stained glass outline and applied it to the cup. This cup was done as part of a live in a little extra ink epoxies group. So I'm going to go over the steps so you can see what I'm doing here and fully explain what I did in order to get this look. So the first thing I did is when I applied the decal to the cup, I cut the beautiful rose cluster that you can see here, but I didn't weed out any of the details of the flowers, the flower petals, the leaves, the little rosebuds. I left them in there and I applied them to the cup. So to get started, what you'll do is you only want to reverse weed, so meaning that you have the decal attached, you come in and you remove just that area with like tweezers, a dental pick, whatever you want, and then you'll select the alcohol ink colors that you want. And we are going to literally dye the epoxy, the color that we want for the specific area on the cup. So what I just showed you there is I use a Q-tip. I dip it in alcohol. So I like the little dauber bottles because you can push down, get a little bit of alcohol on the Q-tip, roll it to a point, and then dip it in your alcohol inks to the side. So literally you just take the Q-tip, dab it in the areas that you want the color to show up, and just take your time to get the color and make sure that you only keep the alcohol ink within the boundaries of the vinyl. So what I did for these rosebuds, I used a deeper color red. So this was Poppy by Tim Holtz, and I'll list out all the different Magentas, the reds, anything that I used below so that you guys could follow along. But I never wanted to use only one color alcohol ink within an area because that's really not how like the old stained glass is that you see in churches. There's always color and differences. You'll see some areas that have darker, more richer tones and lighter tones, and it really gets that dimension that you see in traditional stained glass. So this whole piece here, you just want to take your time, make sure that you're getting the alcohol ink only in the areas that you want them. And if you do go over the outside edge of the vinyl, you want to make sure to have plenty of clean Q-tips with alcohol that you can wipe it off as soon as possible, because these alcohol inks will stain the epoxy and it's just not cute trying to get it up, and eventually you'll notice that you just can't get it up. When you do notice that there's alcohol ink outside the vinyl outline, don't freak out, just move quickly and get it removed and nobody will know the difference. Right here, I'm actually removing some of the alcohol ink that got over the vinyl edges with just the Q-tip like I had mentioned, taking my time to make sure that I'm getting all of it up, then switching back to my other alcohol ink covered Q-tip and getting the coverage in that rosebud that I wanted. Now, since I have all of the flowers done, I'm going to move into the leaves portion. So for this portion, I decided that I wanted to use 2 different color greens that played really well. One was a darker hue that was called Bottle, and I can't remember the lighter hue green that I used, but I always applied the darker bottle color alcohol ink first, then came in with the lighter hue. What I'm showing you here is how I'm removing the little sections of vinyl to expose an area to be colored next with the alcohol inks. So I do this in a step-by-step process because I don't want to expose any of these little areas to the different colors of alcohol inks until I'm ready, because it just causes cross-contamination. You have issues where you might not be able to get up the alcohol inks. So by taking your time and only exposing where you want to work at that time, it saves for a lot of headaches in the future. So what I did just there is I got the bottle color, which is the darker green, onto the Q-tip. Now this Q-tip is spun. So what I mean by spun is I put it on the plate right there, and then I twist it a little bit to get a point onto the Q-tip. That allows me to get into these little areas a lot easier, and it prevents a lot of that extra potential for contamination. So just taking my time. And something else I want to show you is that I am dabbing the inks onto the areas that are exposed. You don't want to drag the vinyl with the Q-tip, because it has the potential for the vinyl to lift and for your colors to get underneath, and we just don't want that. So just simply dab the alcohol inks into the section, let it dry by blowing it or just letting it sit. And granted, these dry super quickly. So just take your time so that you have the least possible amount of contamination possible. Now I wanted to show you the struggle bus section of this tutorial. So I opted to use permanent vinyl, which I know better, but I think I'm still scarred from my tooled leather tutorial where I used the stencil vinyl and the alcohol inks got underneath it, and I ruined a completely beautiful cup. But I did choose to use permanent vinyl here, and so that's what's taken me a little extra time to get the vinyl off for the next section. But I would recommend using removable vinyl, or like the 631 Oracal, which is what it's called. But I did want to show you that it wasn't all easy breezy lemon squeezy. I did struggle to get some of those sections up. And then also I wanted to demonstrate how I applied the alcohol inks to the roses, because to me, the roses are a lot more beautiful than the leaves. Not dogging on the leaves. I just think the roses are the focal point of this cup. So here I'm starting with a lighter pink than the rest of it. And this was Tim Holtz's Magenta, and I will definitely link it below. But I started with the magenta color on the outside of the flower. And granted, these are roses, and just dabbed the alcohol ink in there. I then move into Poppy by Tim Holtz to get the depth in the middle of the flower. And that's more because if you look at a traditional rose, or any flower for that instance, you do have the darker color in the center because it's more condensed and the petals haven't bloomed out yet. So I did want to show you this because I just loved how it all came together. Also, you notice that there is a little black spot that still has vinyl there, and that is on purpose. I did add a little bit of yellow Tim Holtz inks to the middle to give it that little extra detail, and I love yellow too, so that is why the vinyl is there as well. Right there, you'll notice I grabbed a clean Q-tip and I dipped it in some alcohol just to further demonstrate that I make mistakes, and I just needed to remove some extra ink that got over the vinyl line. So I just grabbed some alcohol and a clean Q-tip, wiped it off, and continued to color the rest of the rose. I do this not just to show you that I make mistakes, but to also show you that I do make mistakes. This cup is not perfect by any means, and you guys should absolutely dive in and try new techniques, because I think you're going to be really surprised at what you can create. I continued applying the alcohol, and I didn't want to just have a huge long video of me applying alcohol into the vinyl areas because it would take forever, and it's just a lot of redundancy. So I just included a little bit here for you guys to look at, and then we can definitely head into the next steps of the cups. Now, so here what I'm showing you is with every technique, there are multiple ways to do it. So I also had some alcohol ink markers that I had purchased from Michaels. These are just the Michaels brand. They are pretty inexpensive, but they're still expensive for a marker because they are the alcohol inks. And I came in, and I'm showing you here, even though these colors had already been applied with the other alcohol inks, you could just use alcohol markers. So I'm coming in, just applying the color to the areas that I want them to. And the reason why I started with the traditional alcohol inks instead of the markers is that the traditional alcohol inks do have a lot more pigment and they're brighter with deeper tones to them. So I will say that the alcohol ink markers are easier, especially for getting those fine details, but they didn't have the vibrance of the other alcohol inks that we were using. So if you decided to opt for the alcohol markers, it would be easier. You might just have to do it a couple of times to get the real vibrance that you have from the other traditional alcohol inks. But this is definitely a hack to the hack, I guess you could say, to also get the same look going forward. So one thing to also know is why I'm going over the roses so much here is after I had applied the traditional alcohol inks to all the spaces on the cup, I took it outside and I made the mistake of using too thick of a coat of clear coat to seal this cup. Now, you are going to want to seal the crap out of these alcohol inks so that they do not move when you go into epoxy. But I would recommend doing between 3 to even 5 coats of light clear spray paint to make sure that everything is coated before you go into epoxy. And just like video magic, we are applying our epoxy. So again, emphasizing, you want to make sure that these alcohol inks are good and sealed before you go into this step. But once I was ready, I actually only needed about 15 milliliters of a little extra ink epoxy to cover this decal. And I think the reason why is because I sealed it so well so that the alcohol inks wouldn't work, that these epoxy just glided on. I mean, so smooth, and you can see the shine there, and I was just absolutely blown away. And also, because we'd sealed it so well before we went into epoxy, this cup only needed 1 final coat. It did not need 2. You could absolutely do 2 coats if that makes you more comfortable, but that was it. That's all this cup really needed, and I cannot get over how amazing this technique came out. It was a little cumbersome at times just because I chose a decal that had so many intricacies to it, but you could literally do this with any kind of design that you would want. Oh my gosh, do you see how this turned out? Everything from the sparkle to the shine, it's just absolutely beautiful. I cannot wait to see what you guys create using this technique because it is so versatile and it creates such beautiful cups. Thank you for tuning in. It means the absolute world to me. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below. And if you like this video, make sure to like. If you'd like to stay up to date with future tutorials, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so that you don't miss a thing. Again, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. Love you. Bye.